Welcome to the Feisworld podcast, engaging conversations that cross the boundaries between business, art, and the digital world.
I am very lucky to have met a young man whose name is Lee Skunnes. Lee is one of my yoga teachers and a more recent one I've encountered. Lee's only 25 years old. Yet, he was able to change my perceptions toward many things in life. One day, I found myself saying to Lee that his energy is simply irresistible. Life can be difficult sometimes, and Lee seems to carry that mechanism to help him and his students bounce right back. The secret ingredients reside in the things he says and the things he doesn't have to say. His classes are always packed. Sometimes 45 to 50 students in the Kunis Corner Yoga Studio. Insane, right? Lee may be the tallest guest I'll ever have on the Feisworld podcast. Standing at 6'9", I have verified that he is, in fact, 2 inches taller than Tony Robbins. Lee flows through various yoga poses with ease. In this 2-part interview with Lee, he reminded me that true wisdom often comes from the messy stuff in life. As an incredibly talented and aspiring yoga teacher, Lee believes in walking the walk by doing the work. And he values students as much as they value him. For those of you who are interested in becoming a yoga teacher and perhaps have contemplated the idea for a while, Lee offers the most transparent answer to evaluating whether this could be a path for you. There is no better time to release this episode than Valentines Day. Yay! Lee opens up our conversation with, what is a relationship? What is love? Do we need to have everything all figured out? So please enjoy this authentic exchange and hope you find it easy to relate to some of the topics we chose for our conversation. Show notes, links, and resources can all be found on my website at feisworld.com. Feisworld. If you enjoy listening to the Feisworld podcast, the bestest gift you could possibly offer me are a review on iTunes and also sharing my podcast with your friends and families. Thank you for being with me on this incredible journey and having so much fun along the way. Please welcome Lee Skunnes.
All-knowing guru, like whatever formless name guru, wise, higher power, whatever that name may be. And I heard, I think it was Devi Premal who's saying it. But it's just a click. There's something so simple and pure about it. So I'm gonna do that one next. For me, what do I want in a relationship, if I do even want a relationship, and where's the pressure to be in a relationship, and do I want it to be polyamorous, do I want it to be a throuple, do I want it to be a committed monogamous relationship, and looking at where am I in that, and what's, not even saying like what's the right thing, but looking at where I'm at in my life right now. Does it have to be this big thing? Can it just simply be enjoying somebody next to me, or the quick attachment to figure it all out?
I'm still answering that.
I wish there was like, you turn a page and there's your answer, but it's not.
It's not. And believe it or not, it's not even the case with people who are married. I once thought, you're probably much younger than I'm 31. How old?
25.
Yeah. So, 25, I remember when I was younger, it's like, it has to be pretty trivial. Like, I once thought that married people had it all figured out. And And I realized my parents never had a figure.
No, we put this like pressure and pedestal on people to like, I put it on myself to have it all figured out, or like people who are older have it all figured out, or people who quote unquote look successful have it all figured out. And it's like, like we're all in that same, and some people have it better than others, and you'll like expand in some areas and then you'll contract in those same areas, and like it never, I wish it were finite and you always just kept going up, but that's clearly not how life works. That makes sense.
It's like this is great.
Tales from the Bathroom podcast from Coolidge Corner.
Exactly. You know, my mom is using my mom as an example, as a very, very successful artist, and she's 62. She's been going at it, say, for 50 something years. And growing up, I was always painting, drawing, and at school, my art teacher told me, you have to be better every time. Like, that's what life is about. That's what learning is about. My mom told me when I was 6, she said, no, she's like, Faye, not all my paintings are getting better. Some days I'm 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
Right.
And I was thinking, whoa, this is amazing that we made it so difficult on ourselves sometimes, you know?
And in the world where like I went to the Boston Conservatory for a BFA musical theater, so this whole world of perfectionism, in this world of, especially as an artist, the pressure to not fail, like the stigma, and being an artist and having to have it all sorted out when somebody asks you, what do you want as an artist, or like what are you creating as an artist? I personally I didn't hear it a lot from teachers, but I took it on as that was like the way to make it as an artist, was be perfect, do it right every time, do it better every time. It's a lot. It's exhausting. It really is. That's what actually put me in the hospital. I was in stress ulcers. I was pushing myself too hard, and it's just it's not healthy. It's not how to live life when you're 6 feet under, like to be driven by perfection. Not saying don't go and expand or go and try new things or be better. It's just that don't let that be like the defining thing of where you get value from. I did it better, which means I am better. No, it just means that day you happen to be doing better at what you did. And the next day, if you do quote unquote worse, or what you think is worse, which is never reality, because somebody else is going to think it's your best. So even what you think is your best isn't actually your best, or what you think is your worst isn't actually your worst.
Yeah, who's there to measure that, right?
It's so malleable. It's the world of being an artist is so malleable, and it's a privilege.
And I think partially of what you experienced, that all the discoveries, self-realization you've had at such a young age. I don't think I was where you are today when I was 25, but I did notice a tipping point of when I was around like 26, 27, not much later, I started to look at life and evaluate my own life differently. And start asking what I want. So a warning is, I think, beginning into your late 20s, to me, I think that was really an age of struggle over the course of 27, 8, 9. It's like, oh, okay, I'm approaching 30. I must have accomplished. What is my statement? What is my signature? All of that.
I think that there's... I want to say I'm not part of that. And I want to pretend like I'm not part of that. And that doesn't bother me, and that I can blow over it. But it is very much like very much I find for myself and my generation, and I don't want to put a blanket statement on it, but this drive to better, faster, more, bigger, that seems to perpetuate and keep going. And when you actually take a step back and realize how silly it is to let that drive it. I had a friend of mine who was 31 years old, and he, same age as you, he was working, it was a story actually in the Somerville in the news on Boston.com. he was working, I don't know exactly what happened, but something involving work where he was working the phone lines and his head hit a mason retaining wall and he was knocked out, brain dead, in the ICU, no chance of surviving. And 3 days later, after everybody had seen him, flocks of people had come to see him. I took him off life support, and he passed away. And I wasn't able to make the wake or the funeral, but a friend of mine sent a photo, and the people going to the wake was blocks of people waiting to go see him, just like blocks of people to go see this man. And it was one of those wake up points where I was like, what do I want to do with my life? Like, what do I actually want to do with my life? And I didn't get to this wisdom from ease. Like, I'm a believer that wisdom and experience, while it does come from success, the meat of it does come from the messy stuff of life. Like the messiness. Like when I was 18 years old, a friend of mine, she was half Vietnamese and half Cambodian, and just the pressure of a Vietnamese and Cambodian lifestyle for her family. I don't know all of it, and I could be making a general assumption right now, but what I know from her own experience, it was a lot. And she ended up committing suicide, and she was, I think, 18 years old, and I was supposed to see her the next day and hang out and watch Desperate Housewives. It was like, you think you know you have control, you think you can understand the big picture, and sometimes it's just a complete waste of time to just sit there and try to sort it out. And once again, I'm not invalidating growing and expanding, and that's part of life too, but to be able to find a dance in that and be able to step back and just appreciate it, not have to know what's going to come next, or have to have it all handled. I think that's the big one that drives me, is like, I've got to have it all handled. I've got to have it figured out. I've got to know what's coming next. And like, I can't even just sit and enjoy like the things I have right now. It's in our culture, right? You go from Thanksgiving being thankful for what you have, and the next day you're going to wanting more.
Yeah, exactly.
Black Friday.
What's
You
for
just
Christmas?
go for, I know,
What am I
right?
getting?
Right. And so my family kept asking, what do you want? And I was like, I don't want anything. I don't need anything. They're like, you said need, but what do you actually want? And I said, I still don't want anything. Like, I just want to come home. I haven't been home for Christmas I haven't been to my dad's Christmas for over 2 years. I just want to come home and see family. They're like, there's got to be something you want. I'm like, I don't know how much louder I can get about this. You know?
That's really fascinating, I think. If I may ask, when the incident happened with your friend, the first and the second story, I don't know. The second one sounded like you were 18. And the first one, when you came to the realization of how you want to live your life, how old were you at the time? That
literally happened this September. Like this September, I coached him in a leadership program for about 5 months, and we talked almost daily. Like, it was almost daily that we would connect, and I would coach, or he would call me about something, or we would see each other on Friday nights in this leadership program. And it was here Wednesday morning. It was 6:25. I saw my phone blow up, and there was a comment on Facebook that said, there's somebody sharing a status that only you and 24 other people can see. I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I thought it was kind of like, people get like hacked in emails and stuff like that. So I kind of put it aside. It's like, I know this is coming from, so I swiped it and looked at it, and they were like, hey, by the way, so-and-so is in the hospital, and he's on intensive care, and we don't know if he's going to wake up. And the wind was just knocked out of me, and I went and got taught the class, made it through, called my mom, bawling in the bodywork room over there, just being so clear about what I want to give my life to right now. Who knows if it's forever, but right now, like, giving my life to helping people, whatever that may be. Whether that's yoga, or being an artist and contributing that, or just sitting with them at coffee. I just got clear that, like, things are going to come and go, but like the value, the connections of people. I've gone through about 10 funerals in my life since I was 18. So losing that many people gets you really clear about the priorities. And what goes beyond the superficial, and what goes beyond the necessary day in, day out to what you need. That was very clear for me.
Wow, I'm very glad that we had this conversation before I was going to tell you why I was so excited to interview you. And so today, when I was at work, I left for lunch on my own, and so I brought this little notebook because one of my coworkers said, during the most stressful times, what if you had some little notebook, and his was completely beat up, right? And I had to go to some bookstore and get this really cute one, but it was really such a relief when I'm trying to write things down. It's almost like a meditation in itself. But anyway, there's a special page for you. Dear Diary, about why Lee is so awesome. And I try, it is completely disorganized. It's like scribbles all over the place, but I never started any podcast this way. And but I said, what are some of the words that come to mind? And I was going to form these words into questions I may ask you. And I realized I don't have to form questions that were just going to come naturally. Okay. So some of the words that came to mind are compassion, joy, beauty, balance, authenticity, integration. Integrations, and you as a yogi, a dancer, a singer, all of the above, and the teacher, and connection, exploration, like you're a student who's constantly learning and always willing to learn. I could see you when you're 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, that you'll still be you, Yeah. And I was thinking about some adjectives like cheerful, hopeful, possible, and vocal, and visceral connection. And I was thinking, okay, I was going to stop there. I was like, wait, one more. It's just a few more. I think about you make everybody feel so energized, but at the same time, what other people feel as a result, I'm speaking on behalf of other people, other students of you. I might stalk them and maybe interview them on the way out. Why is Lee so awesome and record now is calmness and peacefulness. It's really interesting, right? It's all the energy, but yet you feel a sense of peace of mind. And so I was thinking, transparent, optimistic, and you're an enabler. You sort of enable and activate and motivate others. So it's a lot all at once. I just had to build all around, and it's really amazing. I was thinking that every time I rush to Coolidge Corner after work from Downtown Crossing, it takes me about 45 minutes to an hour versus over the weekend probably would be 15 to 20 minutes, right? And I'm always rushing. The point of getting here is to be calm and stretch out and feel the love. But by the time I get here, I'm usually sweaty and pissed off. And, it's like I'm trying to hurry so I can get here and relax.
Yeah.
And then I see you, and there is, now you told me that the tragic story happened in September. I believe that's somehow approximately when we met for the first time. And I didn't have a clue about that because I couldn't tell you, didn't carry it on you, and you continue to project your energy in such a positive way onto everybody else. So let me pause for a second. Are you surprised to hear all that, or are you used to it?
No, it's not. It's I'll be completely frank. It's not that I'm surprised to hear it, but it's still something for me to get used to be acknowledged in that way. Because there's part of me is like, oh, if you only knew, if you only knew it was also going beyond, behind that, and also what's happening in front of you. It's it's the dance of being a teacher, of walking the walk and doing the work. I feel like any great teacher is somebody who's willing to walk the walk. I was just talking to somebody yesterday just about I'm not surprised by it, because those are definitely things that I love about myself, and I definitely whenever I'm not having so great of a day or things are not going the way I'd like them to go, hearing somebody else, how they listen to me, definitely pulls me out of that usually. And I don't think students really get the difference you make on teachers. Like it's cyclical. It's not just like I can have the crappiest day and go teach my Tuesday 5:45 class here, and it'll alter my day. Like we also look forward. I won't speak for everybody, but I also look forward to teaching for the people that I get to see. It's not just like the other way around too. So
your classes are always packed.
I value students. Like I know you guys, like quite frankly, you could choose anybody. The city is saturated with yoga.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
You could choose whoever you wanted to go to, and yes, some people come for time. Yes, some come for convenience, and some come for whatever reasons. But it's I value who shows up in the room, and sometimes it can be misconstrued as caring too much. Totally understand that. But I don't care. And I think also, where you're asking if it's something new to me, it's not new, but it's always nice to be appreciated. It's sometimes being a yoga teacher can be very lonely, which it's funny because you can be in front of a ton of people and still have the experience of being alone.
As part of my listeners, I don't really know about the age range. There's a pretty big spectrum to be honest, and there are a lot of people thinking about freelancing or just inventing something as an entrepreneur. And some of my friends have thought about being yoga teachers, and some eventually left their jobs, doing what I was doing, advertising, consulting, and became yoga teachers. I think in recent years, as in the past 5 to 8 years, to your point, it's become very competitive. So people who are still dreaming, thinking about this career, I would love for them to get a sense from you what it's really like.
It's a business. It's like any other business. But it's also, for me, it's let me kind of like compartmentalize it, I guess. I mean, it's all one picture, but I want to kind of give the listeners, as well as people who are interested in it, different avenues to look at it. For some parts, people are going to check out, and other parts people are going to be highly interested in. So as a business, you are your own business, right? Like you're handling your own finances. Most of the time, you're handling your own taxes, like taking out of your paychecks. You're handling your own self-promotions. So there's a very big entrepreneurial part of that. If that's not something you're willing to do, just going to be completely honest, if it's something you want to do full time, and that's something that's your concern, might not be the path for you. Or start to look at avenues that'll help you to be freed up around that. Work to me feels like play. Like teaching classes feels like play to me. And so there's this capacity for myself that I found that, okay, like now that I've got the rudimentary mechanisms down of how I sequence a class, the rest I can play with. And now I'm at this tipping point where, okay, I've played in this way for so long of how I taught, and I've kind of been, I don't want to say struck is the word I'm using, started to delve into different ways of looking at how I teach. There's a whole new ground to break for me right now where I'm at. So as a yoga teacher, it's never finite. It's constantly evolving, just like anything in the health and wellness field. So there's a sense of like being grounded among transition in it, that if that's not something you have a depth of or a capacity in, at first can be very scary. It can be very daunting to be able to be with transition and move through that stuff. That being said, if you have any ounce of exploring it, do so. Like if you have any ounce, if you've ever had the inkling of a thought of like, I want to be a yoga teacher, like not try, because you do or do not, right? You can't try to be pregnant, you either are or you aren't, right? I mean, you can try in the action itself. Sorry, like that's not what I mean to say. But like either you are or you aren't. It's like it's the reality of it, right? Either you do it, you go for it, or you don't, right? So if there's any inkling of doing it, I say try it out, go for it, explore it, see if it is, and then choose. It's like talking about running a marathon and thinking about it and overanalyzing it and looking at the time that you spent thinking and analyzing and talking about it that you could have spent actually trying to run or going for runs or doing a half marathon and then choosing, okay, is that what I want to do next? It's like when people are like, oh, I'm too inflexible for yoga, but you've never been to a yoga class, so you don't know.
Right.
You don't know. So the world of being a yoga teacher for me was also unique for how I got in the door. I worked at Lululemon for a year, so I had these connections that were already starting to come to fruition when I left the company. So I already was connected into studios. I already knew people who were in the field, which is a different avenue than what some people will have. Some people will have no connections to different studios other than being a student there. So, and trust me, there are plenty of people out there in the world that need yoga. That would benefit from it. So there's not a lack of resources, and there's not a lack of people looking for it or don't know where to look or are unclear about the value that they could get from it. They have some story about what yoga is.
I think some of the benefits as being the teacher, the flexibility, and the
freedom of schedule, the flexibility of schedule, like the things you can, just like the other benefits, I'd say it's just like it's a career where you're ongoingly going to grow and develop in. And that's a privilege. Some jobs just don't, right? Some just you're there and you're there. The end.
Right.
And the other privilege is just like it's a gift. Like some people can see it as a job that you just go in and you do and you wear black stretchy pants and you say a few words and you throw a few things out there. But like for me, it's really been a privilege. It's a privilege to give back to the people and I remember one of the teachers here, I don't know if it's true or not, but said that being like teacher comes from the word like rabbi or like so like the responsibility is as us as teachers to know what we're talking about, and the responsibility of us to know what we're giving, right? Because people put their bodies in our hands in a way. And there's a trust that's built, and so having that foundation of trust as a teacher, to take responsibility for that is also part of being a yoga teacher too. But at the end of the day, like I love it. Like I never thought that at 25 this is what I'd be doing. Like the career was like finish your BFA, go to New York, try to make it as a starving worker, hopefully get something, hopefully somebody wants you for your height. And then run with it. I never thought I would be doing this.
How tall are you exactly?
6'9".
Wow, good for you.
So if any listeners out there have any interest, like give yourself this space to explore, and then go from there. Like don't let circumstances get in the way. Don't let finances get in the way. Don't let the outside world have an impact on something that you're passionate about. That's what I do for a living, is I live my passions.
Your passions goes above and beyond just yoga. And there's dancing and singing. Am I leaving anything else?
So musical theater, now going towards a personal training degree as well. So passions also, I love writing. So I write like mini vignette stories. If you ever, how I like to think of my writing is if you had a moment in time and then you stopped the time and you had a magnifying glass looking at the whole moment. I think that's what I love about being an artist and performing, is that it's so in the moment. As much as we want to recreate that exact moment, you can't.
It's like taking the picture, right?
That moment is gone. And there's the tragedy of it is that we don't we're not in the present enough to know that we're in the present. We're already on to the next thing and the next thing. So like my passions are dancing, it's singing, it's theater, it's writing, it's reading, it's personal training recently. Leadership work is something I'm really passionate about too.
What is that?
I've done about 2.5 years of leadership and development work with a global company that its only purpose on the planet is to empower people in what matters to them, whatever that may be, right? So, and I find that with any, I had a good conversation with another teacher about this. Like, if you're looking to be somebody in the yoga field or and just in general, right? Like, trying some sort of like leadership or coaching experience or self-development to go along with whatever your passion, even if it's not anywhere near that. If it's like being a scientist, right? Or like being a dad, like, or being a stay-at-home mom, or being a working mom, or wanting to invent like the next cure for cancer, right? Self-development is such a beautiful complement to any or every field of life that I recommend anybody does it. However you find it too, right? One house, many rooms when it comes to leadership and development work for the self. I find to be highly valuable. Whether it's Tony Robbins or it's Landmark Worldwide, or if it's, LifeSpring, or if it's even yoga, like for many people it's self-development. So that is also a big passion of mine, is having people just be lit up about what they want to do.
And Tony Robbins, it's people like to debate over that. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be a fan for the longest time, just because. But now I think about how tall. Who's taller, you or Tony Robbins?
I don't know how tall he is. I don't know enough about his programs to talk about him too. So like, I don't know exactly what goes on in many of these programs, right? Yeah. I just know from my own experience what I've gotten from mine, and everybody's gonna have their own experiences. And it's so funny, when I was a kid, even a couple years ago, I used to be so righteous about like, no, you want to do this because this is the way it's gonna work, and this is the best way it's gonna happen. But I've come to just kind of be a lot more lax about it, be like, okay, does it work for you?
I came to that realization last year when I was 30. So you're 5 years ahead of me. Good for you. I consider myself to be not extremely advanced, but like somewhat advanced than like people. And I always had I guess one of the almost a struggle I had is I always felt older than I actually was, and especially when I was 18, all my friends are 28, 30. But now nobody cares. It's like, your friends are 40, 50, nobody cares. I just had this
conversation with another teacher, literally when I was getting body work done right before this. It was like, just, you're 31 years old. I'm 25. And it's okay to be where we're at. Like, where we're at is not bad. Like, I'm not saying this is the case for you at all, but for me, it's like, a lot of what can drive me is like, this isn't it. This isn't it. There's that next thing. There's that next thing. That's going to be it. That's going to be it. And then once you're there, you're like, it's the next thing. That's it. There can be a pressure, and you can kind of hear it in the culture and in the conversations about knowing more and being better and being the best and being on top and having it all handled, or being enlightened, or being successful, that get pushed way out to the extreme, and then we don't actually appreciate like the tremendous lives that we have. I mean, how great is it that our biggest problem right now, like for us right now, is having this conversation. Like, that's the biggest thing we have to deal with right now. It's not like getting eaten by a lion. It's not trying to find food, right? It's not trying to find a house, or, knowing where our next paycheck is coming from. It's like the thing that we quote unquote have to deal with right now, or be a part of, is this conversation. Like, it's extraordinary. Like, even 100 years ago, being 25 and 31 meant something completely different. 200 years ago.
You should be glad, 200 years ago, you should be glad that you're still living and you're still 25.
Yeah. And so it's just to kind of like take that moment to be like, you think your life is really hard and you're dealing with these struggles, but it's like taking that moment to just appreciate and put into perspective, like, how amazing our lives really are. And like, if doing your laundry at the right time is the biggest problem you have, one of my friends goes, she's like, if that's your problem, you're gonna get a bigger problem.
You're gonna need a bigger...
You're gonna need a bigger problem, like, because life's gonna have problems.
Yeah.
Welcome to life.
Life,
so what?
Can be difficult.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I think I immediately saw a connection. Granted, we never had dinner together. We never sat down like this ever. We didn't grab coffee. You know, I was in many classes of yours, and I'm just stunned. I'm very interested in how other people respond to, in this case, how you teach, how the things you say, the things you don't have to say. And that's why I think one day I surprised you by saying that I find your energy to be irresistible, which means, you know, if you believe in what you're doing is the right thing, you feel good about what you're doing, you're not someone who need approval to do what you do, and people will latch onto it. And a week ago I was interviewing this musician, Ralph Peterson Jr. for my podcast, and he was very open about, he's like, I'm a musician's musician, which means I don't work for the record company. I'm not going to write music that's going to please a crowd for a certain period of time or certain age, because what if they change their mind? You got to change your music and change who you are. And I thought it was really deep, and that's the feeling I got from your class. Is I look around, you know how it goes, ages 18 to 80 or 70 here, and everybody was in sync. And I think we divide in this world. You know, I think the United States is like the country that does this the least, is to categorize people by age or by race, because we're all this hodgepodge where, you know, and yet still sometimes we talk about people that way, that you're young, I'm old, you're an artist and I'm not. And you create a class where we're all in this together. We're a team. We are one. So I think that is really powerful. And I guess my follow-up question I always wanted to ask you is, have you always been this way, and have you always been supported this way by your family and friends, or is this something that you created out of your experience, kind of over-index the other way? You know, I often think about it.
Oh!
Yeah.
I could be pretty righteous.
Here it comes.
Yeah, it's all going back to doing the work, and I'm nowhere, you know, I'm perfect as I am, and I'm never going to be perfect, and I'm always going to strive just innately into being a better person. That started probably about 2.5-3 years ago. Like, prior to that, I would have asked you a question so that I could talk, so that you would ask me about it, and if you didn't, I would say it anyways. You know, probably 3 or 4 years ago, just and being like a, you know, just being a young 20-year-old, like 19, 20, like, thought the world was all about me, and definitely still have those times where I want it to be about me, or I think it's all about me, or that it should be all about me, right? It hasn't always come like that, and there are still times in my life where I still go back to that, where I want it to be about me, or I still look for approval, and that just like that doesn't go away. I'm getting better at being aware of it, but it still happens, definitely. Like, I still want people to like my classes. Like, I still want people to like me, and that's. I'm not saying that's ever going to go anywhere. I can just start to be an adult about when that happens now, and be like, okay, do I really need their approval, or do what's the thing that's behind it? And it's not always pretty. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty, but definitely wasn't always like this. And I think, to go back to what you were talking about before too in the classes, that I find that there is a dance. There's a dance of offering what I have to offer as a teacher, and also listening to what's in the room. It makes no sense for me to teach, let's say that everybody's lying on a bolster in a class, like a bolster, for those of you who don't know, in yoga, it's like a half body pillow that you can use along your spine or in different ways to support the body. If I were thinking about teaching an upward energy class where everybody's lying down on their back, it would be a complete disservice unless I found a way to gently bring them back up. And even in that process, if I'm seeing resistance and fighting the room, there's a certain responsibility as a teacher to listen to what's going on out there with my students. So to say to not listen to whatever's going on out there, I think is a little too far. But I think that there is a listening to be like, what can I offer that's going to benefit them, that I know will, and then what's needed, what's required that's in front of me. That didn't come right away. That came with the self-development and the leadership work and the practicing of teaching and listening from other teachers who are at where I want to be, or just being in the space of all of yoga and self-development and the world of being an artist, is that it's a responsibility of us to also offer what's needed out there.
So that concludes part 1 of my conversation with Lee. In part 2, we started off talking about the workshops Lee conducted at Coolidge Corner Yoga. I have been to 2 yoga workshops focusing on the 3rd and the 5th chakra. If you're new to this concept, chakra represents each of the centers of spiritual power in the human body, usually considered to be 7 in number. Lee loves creating a forum that fosters healthy dialogues, evoking reactions to help people reflect upon the assumptions and the choices they make. It is fascinating when people start to confront their true feelings. The feedback coming out of the exercise can be very powerful. So make sure you tune in, and I'll see you very soon. To listen to more episodes of the Feisworld podcast, please subscribe on iTunes or visit feisworld.com. That is FEISWORLD, where you can find show notes, links, other tools, and resources. You can also follow me on Twitter at Feisworld. Until next time, thanks for listening.